but I've been calling them.
I'll have to look it up. We
Yeah,
got a meeting 2 weeks out, but
yeah, we got one too, but I wanted to try to do it sooner. The dog's dying. So hot.
yeah. So is my pup. Plus, we're bad at dog grooming, so he's gross.
I think we're recording.
Yes.
We are.
Ready to start. Ready to start.
Kelly looks frozen.
He does.
Woosa, what happened to the mustache? I was digging
Oh, Lucy got a haircut too.
Okay, you guys are sitting with me. I gotta get one.
Yeah, I think Kelly is frozen.
Or the mannequin challenge?
Or he's winning the mannequin challenge. Let me try giving him a call quickly.
I don't even see him.
He's sorry guys. I'm gonna put myself on mute. Oh, there he is.
We can't hear you, Kelly.
Here you, Kelly.
Now?
Yep.
There he is.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm gonna queue up my tablet just in case I. This is just terrible. Can you all still hear me?
Yep.
14,600. And what they're saying is in the event the money does not authorize the use of the entire
Not working for me today.
the parties agree that the seller's concession amount will be reduced so that the seller.
Is everyone on?
Yeah.
You all just waiting for me?
Yep, we're waiting on you.
Of course, I can't open this stupid document. I'll just work off of. Just one more second. I'll be.
What I was thinking about that, do you have any issues with your lender allowing for this work to continue?
Trying to bring
I
up.
mean, a seller's contribution?
Okay. Welcome everyone to the where are we at? Wednesday, June 10th caucus of the Albany Common Council. There's some background noise in there. Someone have something going there? Can you all hear that? There's someone talking or?
Yeah.
I got it. I monitored it. Got it.
Okay. All right. I can't see who, for the record, is in the meeting. Can you call it off for me, JR?
Yep. For the record, we have Council President Pro Tem Kelly Kimbrough, Joe Igo, Owusu Anani, Richard Conti, Kathy Fahey, Majority Leader Farrell, Jack Flynn, Jamel Robinson, Joyce Love, Judy Doche, Mike O'Brien, Sonia Frederick, Tom Hoey. There's only two people absent: Council President Ellis and Council Member Derek Johnson. From staff is myself, Michelle Andre, Danielle Gillespie, City Clerk, and Brett Williams from Corporation Council.
Okay, thank you. So just jumping right into the agenda. So no local laws, nothing on local laws. Moving down to approval, excuse me, I'm sorry, for minutes for a previous meeting, we have the June 1st meeting minutes for approval that I'll be trying to move on Monday. Skipping down, local laws that are held down to, and I'm trying to read your screen because I don't. Okay, no, back to just the first page. Okay, no, that's fine. Ordinance, under ordinances introduced, we'll go there. That's fine. Ordinance 12, 6220. Okay. By Mr. Robinson, Mr. Baller, and Mrs. Frederick. It's the ordinance for the police department interactions during the field sobriety test. Mr. Robinson, you care to comment, or any of the sponsors? There'll also be a resolution. We're passing the resolution for this that goes along with this ordinance, but the ordinance will be going to the Public Safety Committee for further discussion.
I don't have anything much to say on the ordinance at this time. I think
Okay.
it goes to committee. That's why I can give my comments.
Okay.
So I just have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not on the content. I have no problem with the content. It's just, I think this should really be amending the part of the code that deals with police powers and the rules and regulations in chapter 42. So it's all in one place. And if you're looking for it, rather than creating a new section in 183, which is disconnected from the police department and the powers and authority of the chief, it kind of gets lost by putting it there as opposed to putting it where all the other powers and rules and regs are contained. So I think you should be amending chapter 42 rather than 183.
I think JR has much more information on that. I believe he was in touch with Corporation Counsel on that same idea. So
More so because this is dealing more with an equity on a more equity level, and I was reading what the equity agenda says. I felt that it was more appropriate in the equity agenda.
Yeah.
I did see it was something that we were considering also 42. Of course, if we do it 42, it's a local law as opposed to an ordinance. I know me and myself and Corporation Counsel were, we have some things that we were discussing on this. But do you want to go on it?
Yeah, I mean, there have been amendments in 42 by ordinance, and local law, you can do that as well. It just, as I say, I mean, the equity agenda is kind of a bunch of stuff that's not always connected or related to each other. It kind of things get lost over there. So if someone is looking at the powers and duties of the police department, they're going to look at 42. They're not going to look at 183. This section then gets lost. So it's really consistent with what you want in 142 and 42 rather than creating all of these disconnected provisions.
My thoughts were essentially in line with Councilmember Conti's thoughts on that. And to further the point slightly, obviously I don't know that there will be any more legislation out of the council regarding police procedures or police policies, but if there are going to continue to be items of legislation dictating police procedure and things like that, then yeah, I think it probably makes some sense to put them under the heading already devoted to that, which is chapter 42.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the content, but just the appropriate placement so it can be found. So that's my observation.
Councilmember Douche had her hand up from what I saw.
Yes, so I also have the same gut reaction. I think the equity agenda is a little bit more a continuous review of what is going on with the allocation of resources, where this is a little bit more of an absolute. And I think, as you know, somebody who researches the law, I don't know that I would think to look in the equity agenda when it comes to this kind of thing. That's number one. Number two, I reviewed the policy that we were sent that included traffic offenses, and I didn't see anything in the APD policies specifically with regard to field sobriety tests being offered in other languages. I believe the resolution is also broader than just Spanish. So those are a couple things when this goes to committee that I'd like to be addressing. I'd like there to be some consistency. I'd like to know what the police department really has. I just haven't been able to find anything that indicates that they are offering translation services when they do field sobriety tests, which is the impression I got the other day.
You know, usually when you require translation or a second language, there's some kind of a percentage threshold that you would use. And I would assume that Spanish is probably the only one. But I would also argue that this does, the way it's written, it does create a base that you can then build on in the future.
I do want to mention that the Ron Lesko from the City of Albany has told me that actually in our school district, Spanish is not the highest second use language.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
We have other, I think it's, whether it's Saudi or Farsi or whatever it is. So there are other languages that we want to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're correct. So maybe there could be some kind of a generic test that could be included that might bring other languages in. Anyway, that's something to be discussed in committee.
Yep.
Kelly, we can't hear you.
Jose, can you hear me now?
How about now?
Yes.
How about now? So why don't we work on getting that moved over to chapter 42, since some members think it's more appropriate in that section in terms of looking it up. Mr. Robinson, as the sponsor, your thoughts? Would you be open to making that amendment, moving it over there?
I don't have any opposition to that.
Okay, so we'll work on moving
We'll work
that
on
up.
it.
And yeah, so okay.
But I also would like to defer to the other sponsors of the ordinance, of the piece of legislation as well, for their input.
Yeah, I agree. Just to confirm with that change, will it still be on the agenda for Monday?
Yeah, you're gonna move that over and take care of that for us, JR, by Monday. You'll get that done for us, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Ballerin, you okay with that? I can't see him. Did he nod? No.
Did he not? Is he not? I don't think he's here, actually.
You didn't call his name earlier. He doesn't appear to be.
No, he's not here.
Okay. All right, we'll just work on those changes for Monday, so we can get that done. All right, on to resolutions. The rest of the ordinances are held under resolutions. Resolution 51, 62.
That were held that just came out of the planning meeting yesterday. I mean,
Oh, Mr.
Hoey's and Dojette's. I
Okay,
believe Hoey's is the number 5, an ordinance held. And,
They don't, but they're not being voted on
They're
Monday.
not being
Right.
voted on.
oh, yeah.
They need
oh,
the public hearing
Good.
first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, in the resolutions, is Mr. Johnson here or no?
He's not.
He's not. Okay. We'll just go through. His resolution 5162 of 20R is recognizing Ruby Hughes and renaming Trinity Place between Westerlo and Madison after her. That will be an introduction for Monday. I actually, just give me a second. Yeah, and so since we've added the for the new street renaming resolutions, the necessity to have that discussion amongst council members, I'm going to refer it to we'll say general services. To general services for that discussion. So
Okay.
that's what I'll be going, intro and referral. Okay. Next resolution is Mr. Flynn, 5262-20R. The resolution directing Department of General Services to open the golf course. Mr. Flynn, you're here, correct? You want to speak?
He's on mute.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Yes, Kelly, I assume it's going to go to either Finance Committee or DGS. All I want to say is I've been getting a lot of emails, texts, calls, city residents in the 8th Ward, residents throughout the city. I'm sure you've gotten all the emails so far. And
Yep.
I think there's a big financial gain here, or I personally think we're not getting the revenue that we deserve. There was a petition around, over 1,000 signatures. You all saw the article about the golf course, and then we can discuss it in committee. I mean, I can keep going, but I don't want to hold that up. So it's your call, whatever you feel is best, the DGS as an operational or the finance or whatever you think is best.
Well, since this is, I mean, it's DG, we'll put it in DGS.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sounds good.
All right,
Yep.
we'll do that. I mean, there's
O'Brien.
a financial component, but okay. Referred to general services. Next one, Mr. Flynn.
Yeah, it's the same thing. If for some reason we're not going to open up the course, we gotta, I don't want to quote Owusu, but reimagine the golf course. You know, we got to look into other ways we can utilize the golf course, and that could be another discussion on the same night if you want.
Right. Well, so who's the background? Good. It's gone. It was kind of loud. So what we're going to do is refer this to it's the golf course. It's a park. It's recreation. So it's going to go to Parks and Recreation. It's going to go.
That's fine.
Okay.
But it's not under control of Park. It's under control of DGS right now.
The two sides are saying.
Yeah.
Who's TV?
I think DGS maintains it.
Right.
DGS maintains all of the parks.
Right.
Right.
So Parks and Rec, that's where it's going, right? It's referred to. Intro referred.
And I just want to echo, I want to support, I think that this golf course has been a topic of discussion for years about what are we going to do with the park? Is it generating revenue? It's not generating revenue for the city of Albany. I've shared several times that I think it's time for us to reimagine the golf course. Maybe have something similar to the crossings of Colony, to look at maybe having pools there, having golf course, having soccer fields, having a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm glad that the sponsor is introducing this resolution. So it's long overdue discussion about the golf course.
Can I comment?
Yes, sir. Yes.
The golf course, is being maintained perfectly. So they obviously are paying a crew to do it. It's getting no revenues, but you could golf on that thing today. It's being maintained on a standard equal to Colony Golf Course or Clifton Park Golf Course or any of the municipal golf courses that I've seen this season. So, I mean, I think to a certain extent it has been repurposed. I mean, there's never a day I go walking out there that I don't see people. And in the winter, of course, it's active with the winter sports. But to compare it to Colony has both. It has the crossings and it has a golf course, which it opened and is making money from. But yeah, it's a good discussion. I looked at the past budgets for the last 5 years, and the approximate revenues each year, assuming a 7-month season, are $900,000. So we've lost well into 6 figures by not opening it. The state of New York has even opened their own golf course that's up in Saratoga Spa State Park. So, but it'll go to committee and we'll have that discussion. But yeah, I just wanted to make that comment.
I agree with reimagining the golf course. I do think it's something that should happen, but also have we thought about doing some type of analysis on what happens if we sell the golf course and privatize it to receive some type of revenue off of it, seeing the financial constraints that the city is in at this moment?
I think that'll be part of the discussion, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, except that if you privatize it, will it get those extracurricular uses like it gets now? Walking, sleigh riding, cross-country skiing. I mean, we did privatize the concession, although I don't know if that gave us any money this season or not, probably not. But yeah, we'll have it as part of the discussion.
I saw Councilwoman Douche, and then I saw Tom Holy after that too.
So I just wanted to comment that I am hopeful that people are having conversations with the administration regarding getting actual information regarding the finances to assist us in making a decision. It does seem as though we are maintaining the golf course currently, and I don't know what savings or what additional costs there are versus what revenue might be anticipated. But I'm hoping that we can have that information at a general services meeting and that can happen expeditiously.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, Danielle, you can probably answer that because I know there's been a lot of FOIA requests for information from the mayor's office when it comes to expenses, revenue, golf ball revenue, and right, Danielle, there's a lot of them out there, right?
So the majority of the FOIA requests that have been coming across my desk have been for information from the police station. I'm still going through the current requests that are outstanding and haven't been responded to yet, and to see how many of them relate to the golf course, and then I'll give you a firm response in a couple days.
All right. Are these FOIA requests from members of the council?
That I'm seeing?
Or that you're talking about as far as for the golf course?
I haven't run across one yet. I just recently started going through after I received Councilmember Flynn's email, and I hadn't seen one asking for FOIA requests. I mean, a FOIA request asking for the golf course. I'm so sorry.
I'm saying if the council is looking for information, we should not have to FOIL it.
Just so everyone knows, the mayor's office, they said that they have crunched numbers, so I'm sure that they'll be ready to talk about this in a committee meeting.
I'm sorry.
It's Tom Holy's next.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be real fast, and I will talk at committee, but I just want to make sure, I just wanted to reach out to Jamel. The thing I get concerned about when I hear the word privatize is usually the companies come in, they will not hire union workers. Right now, the DGS workers are unionized. They can, get a decent salary or at least fight for a decent salary. If you give away that right, I'm very concerned and I get nervous. Also, a bit of history, probably around 30 years ago, there was a push to sell the golf course. It was Councilman Tornicello, who was actually President pro temp, I think, of the council. He wanted to sell it and put up luxury housing, and there was an uproar in the city. So it's a green space. I'd hate to see that green space go, whatever use it's for. So, but the unionizing private workers, having union workers is very important and dear to me. Thanks.
Is there anyone else?
No, just a couple of observations. I think you need to be careful when you compare us to Colony and the Crossings. I don't think the Colony has the same level of recreational opportunities and green space that we do. And so, developing something like the Crossings is unique. And sometimes you need to look at the golf course. It's just another recreational program that we provide. We do charge for it. But, a city that offers a wide range of recreational opportunities is an attractive city for people to want to come and be a part of. So we offer pools, tennis courts, skateboard park, a lot of different things. Golf course is just another example of something we offer. But in that case, we do charge to bring in the revenue to support its operations. And I do think when we look at the costs, we have to look at the real costs off season that really, that we're not charging costs to the golf course that are not really golf course costs because they're DGS costs that are kind of being offloaded over in that direction.
Right.
So you have to have a good cost accounting.
Thank you.
Which the golf course doesn't have, because the golf course also pays for snow plowing and a lot of other DGS functions.
You could even look at converting the golf course to an enterprise operation, which then would require that the revenue sustain the operations and it can't be siphoned off.
Yeah.
All good discussions for committee.
That's a good. Hey, please.
So Kelly,
Yes.
I got a question for you. If that's going to Parks and Rec Committee, I don't think Jonathan's going to be able to answer the questions. Not necessarily that Sergio would answer them either, but I think if it's going to Parks and Rec, they should require somebody from DGS with numbers, which I may or may not believe, because the budget exists and gives actual numbers from years past, and they're pretty significant. So, Jonathan's great, but I don't think he'd be able to answer the kind of questions relevant.
So we'll have to request that the.
I think there's two different so one is going to DGS.
Yeah.
Right.
And that'll deal more with the costs. And then the other one is going to Parks, and that will deal more with the reimagining.
Yes.
So, potential that the
have a joint committee
should
meeting.
have DGS there. I think that's a valid thing, but the cost thing, DGS will be there. And I think we should definitely make sure that whoever the mayor's office somebody's got to be there to answer the financial questions too.
Right, and we'll request that and make sure that occurs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to next resolution 546220. That's amending appointments of marriage officers with extending the ability of our city clerk to do the marriages. Danielle, can you say a little bit about this?
Absolutely. So this has been a very well-received service that we've been offering, because the availability of the city courts for civil ceremonies is still kind of not available. So the fact that we're providing this additional option to people, and it's been profitable, I feel like in the amount of time that we rolled it out, we've had $300 additional in revenue, and that may seem small, but as we continue, I anticipate additional revenues. And I also anticipate the fact that the city courts will not be reopening for civil ceremonies in the near future. So people are still looking to get married and still in love. So this is something really good that we're providing, and it's been received well. And those would be my comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, members? If not, that'll be a pass for Monday.
Can I just quickly back on this? This is just a temporary appointment?
Yes.
So this actually extends it to the end of Common Council's term. So December 31st, 2020. So it's extending it too. And it's also doing a technical correction.
As a practice moving forward, it doesn't make sense that, you know, there are other cities, bigger cities, city clerk is a marriage officer by right. If it doesn't make sense, you know, moving forward, that at the beginning of the city clerk and maybe the deputy clerk's term, that we just automatically appoint them as marriage officers.
I was looking into that. Under Section 11 of DRL, it does give like the city clerk of New York City that authority. We would have to we would need another ordinance, which I'm actually working in the background too on it, to allow the Common Council unilaterally to defer that authority, because it's the legislative body. So we're just looking to do an ordinance or a local law to automatically give the city clerk that authority. And if needed, one thing was to allow for appointments by the city clerk as well.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. All right, next resolution 55-6220. Calling on the repeal of 50A. I will, Mr. Anani, I'm sure you'd love to say something about this. So.
Yeah.
Maybe another thank you.
Say it again. How you go?
Maybe another thank you, like you changed on the other one.
Oh, gotcha. Thanks, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So all across the country, right, we have people calling for police reforms, and the repeal of 50A is one of those discussions that have been going on for years. And I'm glad to see that our state representatives are acting on this important repeal of this legislation. So I just want to thank my colleagues and for everyone for signing on here. I think it sends a strong message that we hear the people's cry. We're listening to the community. And very too often, there are some people that would say, when it comes to the police reform or personal information, you could go right now on New York State website and figure out people's salaries. So I think that if you have nothing to hide, there should be no reason why this information shouldn't be made public. We have instances where police officers very too often have a record of police misconduct. And very too often during those cases, district attorneys, though the prosecuting those cases, are not able to have access to that information. So I believe that it's important that the state is repealing this civil rights legislation to make sure that we all know and to hold ourselves accountable, hold law enforcement accountable. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't think it will be the end all be all as relates to police reform and also to end police brutality and all other police misconduct, but I believe it's a step in the right direction. And I want to thank all my colleagues for signing on as prime sponsors.
So is this being revised then to a thank you?
That's what I was gonna ask, if it's gonna be a revised, because it has passed the Senate and the Assembly. It hasn't been officially delivered to the governor, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna sign it very soon.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm open to that. But again, I know some people, this is a call that many of the rallies that I've attended, they are calling for. And I think that it's important that we act when our residents are calling for some of these reforms. Sometimes we can't wait for the state to act, or we can't wait for the federal government to act. And I think it's important that we pass some of these resolutions to show our support. So yes, we could thank our legislatures.
Okay, so it's gonna.
So we can amend it. I'm sorry, I just want to understand. We can amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not, the governor might not sign it by our meeting. So, I mean, we could call on him to sign it too, depending on.
And it is a different bill number than the one referenced in the resolution.
So,
Okay.
so what passed is different than what our resolution says? I'm very confused as to what we're supposed to be supporting at this point.
The original, our resolution cites a bill that was just a flat out repeal of 50A.
Right.
Is a flat out repeal of 50A, but then it contains additional amendments to the public offices law that apply to FOIL and public access.
Right.
That creates some exceptions and standards that I think relate a lot to personal information, et cetera.
I just remembered last night that there was a substitution made real quick. That's why the numbers are different. There was a sub, I believe. So yeah, I'll make the amendments. On that.
The bill number, or the assembly bill number, is A10611.
Yeah, and I think I sent that out to folks earlier or this week.
Yeah.
But some of the advocates didn't like how they were tinkering with the outright repeal. Is that correct?
At
Yes.
what point? Yeah.
The advocates just wanted the outright repeal. They didn't want any language changed or any
No amendments.
no amendments. Any of the changes that were made, they didn't. No.
They just wanted it gone.
I thought
So-
that advocates were comfortable.
So while we are thanking them, if we're changing this to a thank you, so I'm a little confused.
So with the 58, with the 58 resolution currently, I've been working with Citizen Action and other reform groups, police reform groups, and they are okay with the resolution that we're passing. I've actually asked organizations like Citizen Action, and also there's another organization that's not coming to my head right now, but they are okay with the reforms and the repeal as it currently stands. Can we go further? Of course, but this is a living, breathing document, and they could make amendments as we move forward.
Right, so they're okay with the legislation that has passed.
Yes.
Right, so it means that our resolution has to be revised.
Right,
to reflect
to add the actual numbers in there.
Yes, that is fine. Yes, no one is disagreeing with changing the numbers or adding the numbers. What I'm saying is this, is that I've spoken to several organizations that have been working years on repealing 50A, and the general sentiment, can it go further enough? Yes, but right now they're okay and they're happy with the current legislation.
So, but my question, Councilman Anani, is: are they okay with what's passed by the Senate and the Assembly, not our resolution?
Say it again.
Are they fine with what's passed by the Senate and the Assembly because it was different from what it was originally? Not too much, but
they're satisfied with the amendments that we have made already with our resolution.
Not with the resolution. I'm asking the question that was passed by the legislator.
Yes, the state law. Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay.
So actually, so I reached out to Anita Thayer about this, and she indicated to me that there were continuing concerns about what was going on, and suggested I talk to Mark Mishler. I'm wondering, Owusu, who you've talked to in Citizen Action that that we could have that kind of.
Oh, definitely. Her name is Erin. She's the lead criminal justice organizer. So that's statewide organization. Erin is her name. I'm blinking on her last name, but Erin is her name. And I could send.
Her last name starts with an R. Rodriguez? Not Rodriguez.
No.
It's irrelevant. It's all irrelevant.
Okay.
Yeah, but I could send you her information, and she's the lead organizer for this piece of legislation and also the reforms. I sent her specifically, and she said she supports it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next resolutions, 56, 62, 20.
Oh, her name is Erin George. Found it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. 56, 62, 20. That will be mine on behalf of public safety. Appointing Nairobi Vives as a member of the Community Police Review Board. We had a public safety meeting a couple days back in which we interviewed her, and she's an excellent candidate for the board. She will be present on Monday. Michelle,
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so everyone will get to meet her. She's a young attorney who grew up in the South End, young woman of color, and I was very impressed, as were, I think, some of the other committee members. So that'll be a pass.
I think Joe has a.
No, very excellent candidate. I'm glad she applied.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be good. Okay. Next is resolution mine. It's honoring the life of William Hank Wallace. We're renaming a portion of Lark Street between Livingston and it's Manning. What does it say? And Manning, or excuse me, Manning Boulevard. Excuse me. And his honor, that'll be going to DGS for the further discussion, since we changed the rules and process for dealing with street renamings. Okay. That was it for the resolutions.
At this point, you'd also have an MC.
I can't see my
We do. Hold
active count. Mr. Robinson's MC, correct?
Yeah. 1 second. Let me put it up.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Keeps cutting out.
We have it right here.
Okay. Asking to add by majority consent resolution 586220 by Mr. Robinson. He emailed this out to most members, but Mr. Robinson, you want to comment?
Sure. Thank you. So this resolution comes out of the spirit of what the movement that's been going on across our nation. Not only are people calling on police reform, but people are calling for our systems of government to be analyzed in a holistic manner. And so this resolution that is put before you to rename Livingston Park, and that's located in my district, to Black Lives Matter Park. And the reason before that, as I am a student of Black history and recently I'm more of a student of the history of Albany, the Livingston family, which is a prominent Livingston family, there are many things named after them, including the street in my district, the main street, Livingston Avenue. You know, while they were great for white history, they weren't so great for Black history. And so I wanted to do something, you know, to begin to dismantle some of the things that, you know, Black people in the city of Albany live under the shadow of. And so Livingston Park, I feel that is right now isn't a befitting name for this park because this park is located in a predominantly a district with people of color. And so I would like to change to Black Lives Matter Park in honor of the Juneteenth celebration when the last slaves in the U.S. received word that they were free. And so, you know, I'm a firm believer that no one should have to live in the shadow of their oppressors. And so this is the reason why I am putting this resolution forth before the body of the council. So
Councilman O'Brien has his hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Most of our name changes are honorary, and I think you want this one to be permanent. Mm-hmm. And I think you want it to be officially show up on all the Google Maps and official maps which come out for Albany. The last time that we officially renamed a street was Sandage Way off of
This is not
Road.
a street.
Ah, but wouldn't it apply also to a park? Wouldn't the same rule? I mean,
no.
Oh, because what I found is if you go on Google Maps or GPS, like if I GPS Washington Park, it would take me to Washington Park. But unless you do an official name change, which, as I understand it, involves filing that map change with the New York State Secretary of State's office, and that's how it makes it into official maps, Google, GPS, and all of that stuff. So what I could do is look into how we did it for Sandage Way. That was the last time that we officially changed a street name such that it actually went through all the official processes and shows up on any kind of mapping device, which we have, as the change to name. And I can find out how we did that on Sandage Way, because it wasn't that long ago. It was about 6 years ago or 5 years ago. I mean, just a thought. I think that's what you intend to happen.
Gotcha. So, Councilman O'Brien, I did raise that question with JR. We did discuss that about, you know, how should we best present this piece of legislation. We did talk about doing it in an ordinance form, but I believe that, and JR, correct me if I am wrong, but because there was no previous kind of naming of this park, official naming by ordinance, a resolution is fine to put forth to have this name change of this park.
Okay, but then there's still that other official step of filing it on that statewide registry, so all the official mapping devices will reflect its new name.
Okay, so I would refer that to our research council to research that and see how, you know.
Yeah, and I would just suggest that JR look up whatever we did on Sandage Way, because that's how we did it, which actually honored a woman from the 1950s who was I think the first Black school board member in Albany.
Jamel, where is this located? Is this on North Lake in Livingston? Is that the playground there?
Yep, North Lake and Livingston, between 3rd and Livingston.
Go ahead, Brian. I know I was going to actually ask you a question. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. All I was going to point out was that the code section in question here is section 251-1, which is designation of parks, and it goes through and lists a variety of parks: Academy Park, Clinton Park, Delaware Square, Beverly Park, a bunch of others. But as Councilmember Robinson mentioned, Livingston Park is not among those. So in theory, yeah, the name I think could be changed by resolution, but if the name change is something that the council would want reflected in the code, which may or may not be something that you'd be interested in, I think then it would have to be done by ordinance, but that's, of course, the council's call.
Yeah, because Livingston Park is not listed anywhere in the code, so that's where we came down to the resolution on this.
So if you wanted it listed in the code as Livingston Park, then
yeah,
it needs to be done by
You can do both. You can do the resolution for the more immediate need that you want, and then codify it by an ordinance at a later point.
Yep, and so JR and I did discuss that, and so I think that would be our best course of action, is to pass this resolution for the more immediate need, and then subsequently to codify it with an ordinance.
Yes, because Juneteenth is next week.
Right.
Right. So, okay, so this will be a pass. And JR, you're going to work on the ordinance, you know, for in the future.
I'll research that because yeah, I'll research that
permanent
portion.
and listed. So, something just disappeared here.
And JR, did I answer whatever question you had?
Yeah, no, that was what I was going to ask to defer, because we both discussed this issue because it's not listed, and I mean I'm still trying to. We'll if the ordinance is needed, we'll forthcoming. So we'll just stand tight.
Okay, so that's for the agenda. So what we'll do now is, Jenny, can you do me a favor? We'll go through our leadership meeting and our discussion there.
I think you're going to the resolutions held section.
Did I miss something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't have.
We have the, because we're having a finance committee meeting on Monday where we're dealing with 45, 6120R, that pilot for 25 Delaware Housing.
Oh, Richards, that's right. Okay.
And should that pass through committee, that will.
It'll be up for Yes. For,
And
sure.
then,
There we go.
and then also we have 486120R Anane, the Food and Drug Administration blood donation resolution, and 506120R, the resolution for the field sobriety tests.
All right, let me, I printed all this stuff out, and of course the printout's at my office, and that's not helping me at all. And the one marked up from leadership. Can you, where are we? For,
So those are the pieces for.
right, okay. All right, so yeah, right, resolution 456120. I won't repeat what you said. Those are in committee and will be up for votes. Mr. Anani's, okay. Where's the active calendar? Just bear with me.
It's number 10, Kelly.
Is it? Okay.
Right here.
Right, yeah, okay. All right. Yes, Mr. Anani's policy on
And then
gender
12.
bias. Excuse me?
And then 12, the resolution part of the ordinance for the field sobriety test.
Right, that we held off on. My apologies for Mr.
Robinson,
Ballerin, and Frederick. That, yeah, that also will, that'll be a pass. Number 12.
Okay. Excellent. So I think that is everything. So we, in our leadership meeting.
Hello, can I?
Sorry, Judy, I didn't see your hand there.
Yeah, well, so I'm sorry, now I hit something and I can't see anybody. I don't know what I just did.
We can still hear you.
Camera's off, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so I'm confused. The drug policy, the blood policy, my agenda says it was referred to planning, economic development, and land use.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
No, that was just an error.
No, human rights.
Yeah.
It was referred to.
So it's not a
human rights.
pass. It's human rights and
Human rights committee meeting on Thursday.
We have, yeah, on Thursday.
Where we're going to be discussing it.
So this is tomorrow?
Yes.
Come on,
Yes.
come on.
Yes.
At what time?
5:30.
5:30.
Okay. And then with regard to item number 12, I am wondering, there was a point made that the Albany Police Department provides translation services. I didn't see that in the policy that we got. I'm wondering, Jamel, did you get anything from the police chief on that? That shows where that is?
I have not received anything from the police chief regarding that particular policy located in their policy handbook, so to say. But this is something that he did verbally communicate to me over the phone. So I don't know if it is a standard practice in the field and they just haven't put it in their policy. And that's what he probably got the notion that it was a policy back decision.
Okay, so it's not in the policy. So with regard to Richard's recommendation that we say something about it being in our policies, I think we're not really in a position to say that definitively unless we have something.
Yeah, if it's not in the policy, it's not in the policy. Then you don't
Right, we don't have to
acknowledge it as being in the policy because you don't know that it is.
Right, okay. So thank you for that.
So we're
Sorry
passing.
for interrupting, Jenny.
So, Line, just to be clear, so we're passing it as it is in its original form, based on, even though the chief did communicate that it was a practice. So we're just going to pass it in its original form without the amendment that was suggested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that this is an important issue, and asking them to put it in their policy. I mean, again, Michelle distributed the policies for traffic regulations that included a discussion of the field sobriety test, and I was surprised that this was not mentioned in that, because it is quite extensive. So I think that we should be pushing him on that. I don't think that should hold up this resolution, but I'm just saying, I don't understand why, even considering how extensive that, unless it's someplace else, you know, unless it's someplace else that I'm not seeing it. I think when you have a policy and procedure manual, something like this should be clear, you know, to me, so from an equity standpoint. So I'm not looking to hold up the resolution. I'm good with passing it as is, based upon, you know, what we have found out today. And but I do think that we should be pushing the administration to make those changes or have further discussions with the police department on it. Get some, you know, you had a conversation, getting something in writing even from the police chief about where that is in training, et cetera, and how the police officers know about this as a policy if it's not in the book.
Right, and what I would say is, you know, the chief being new, I mean, he's been there for a decent amount of time, and he probably sees the policy, the actions in effect with the traffic stops, and just assumes maybe that the policy existed because that's what they're doing. So we can, or I can have a conversation with him and make sure, see if it's somewhere already in existing policy that we're missing, and if not, make sure that we have them codify that and come up with a policy for that, because it's important. Can you all still hear me? I'm cutting in and out.
Yes.
Yep.
It's like technology. All right. So, were there any other questions or comments on the legislation? No. With that being said, Jenny, will you take us through the finances and the updates?
So we talked about what was happening with the police, with the mayor. Obviously, we saw the ban on chokeholds. I'd like to thank Councilmember Anani for taking the lead on a letter from the council on that. That was really important. And there's, the chief is reviewing, I'm not sure if people have seen the 8 Can't Wait thing that's been going around with 8 different points of reforms for police departments.
Yep.
So the chief is spending some time reviewing those and looking into what reforms can come from those, and we'll be getting further updates from that. The mayor also mentioned in terms of chokeholds, it was just banned statewide, but she said if we wanted to ban it in the city, then that is.
We did.
Sorry. That's something that we could do. I'm not sure it's necessary if there's a statewide ban, but that's something that could possibly be discussed in public safety. We talked about, I mean, right now we have not been focusing so much on the budget, but that is still something that is looming for us. So that we also talked about the budget next year for APD and what that's going to look like. And she said that they're going to be really looking at spending funds differently within APD. APD has a $56 million budget, and they believe that there should be, they're going to make serious changes to the budget to make sure there's victim advocates, funding put towards de-escalation, funding put towards connection to services so that people are really getting connected to the services they need. It's something, as everybody knows, our budget isn't done until the fall. So it's something that they're really looking at right now and digging into the numbers. And I think that's part of what happens as they're going through those different community conversations to try to decide how that funding should be allocated. They will be doing different exercises with that, and at some point be having, they said that they would definitely be open to having council participate more in depth with that. So we'll find out what that really looks like moving forward, but we might have different members participate in exercises with funding. And really looking at what those resources should be identified as within the police department.
Right, and just real quick for the that new usage of funds, the mayor actually mentioned hiring of violence interrupters and doing something different. So it's not taking the money away from the police department, but it's redirecting it to some other much needed things.
Yeah, with the idea, I mean, the two taglines for police are protect and serve, and that serve side is important. And she said what's happening now clearly isn't working, so the money needs to be directed differently. There is a police academy that is coming. There are 30 members that they're looking at. They said they're absolutely changing how that will be done. That there's going to be a real history of Albany included, and an understanding that that has to be owned by police officers, whether they were part of that specifically or not. Just putting that uniform on ties them to that past, and they have to be aware of it. To kind of be aware that even if with this full class of 30 members, with the retirements, we'll still probably be 50 officers down. And so there'll be another class next year. There hasn't, she said that we asked about the couple. I'm sure everybody has seen the videos pertaining to the couple. And the mayor the police officer is now off the street, which does not mean suspension or anything like that, but he is now no longer on the street. That team is not normally deployed on the street. They were there for a very specific reason. And then I will say, I found that Kelly was able to speak to the history of that specific team. That's who, and you might want to speak more on that, Kelly, because you had the most knowledge.
Right. Yeah. No. It's crew. It's like a narco or a vice squad, and they were down there dealing with an instance where the young man or a young man had ridden up against the barrier, and he had a can of gas with a rag and all that stuff in the bag, and so they were in there to deal with that issue. But then the whole way everything else developed was just terrible and short-sighted, and for everything that we have going on right now in this city, just like absolutely uncalled for. So that's all I'll say. But yeah, and also that particular person who engaged and started that whole thing is assigned elsewhere. But it was kind of all hands on deck. We got a lot of stuff going on here in the city, so everyone's together, and that's how they came to be down there.
So I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just the one officer, or did you say officers?
The one,
you mean that is not,
That's
The
off.
one officer who is off the street, it's just that one officer. It is not that fully, and he is still working for APD.
And did they mention as to why the other officers weren't taken off the streets as well? And just to Kelly's point, I've had interactions with that particular unit as well as community members of mine. And that unit is known for doing what they did downtown. So this is nothing new to me, or to the people, or to the community. So why aren't the other officers that were involved, who did participate in escalating the situation at one point, taken off the streets as well? Did they mention that?
No, they did not. They, what the mayor said was that that officer that clearly escalated that situation was not normally part of that unit. And Kelly clarified that he was for quite some time part of that unit, but he's now on loan to the FBI. So currently he is not part of that unit, but he is part of the unit. Like, he's been there for quite some time. No, they did not say why. And I agree with you that this is, there's a lot more to this. Clearly, with everything that's happening right now, it's completely that was horrifying. Everything that's going on, and it's not okay anyway, but to, with everything that we're dealing with. Joyce. Oh, you're on mute though.
How come we can't get with the chief to try to find out why the other officers that was involved didn't get penalized?
We can, I think.
We can.
Valuable question.
Okay, well, I think we should, I think it's important right now that we meet with the chief about not only this incident, about other incidents. I just want to say this very quickly, that in Robinson's ward, a 92-year-old man got held by gunpoint by, and I have the detective's name, I'll send it to everybody. And because his house upstairs, where he lives downstairs, upstairs got raided. They was looking for some young man, and because they couldn't find him, they kicked in downstairs door and held the 92-year-old man at gunpoint. So we need to talk to the chief, not only about just what went on, just generally the stuff that's going on and nobody's addressing.
Yeah.
So if we can do that ASAP, because the longer we let this sit, the longer this is going to keep continuing, because they have no fear.
Councilman Johnson has his hand up.
I just want to point out that, we brought things to this administration's attention in regards to, statements being made in front of co-workers, and we never got any follow through. And, we call the chief in and to have a conversation with the chief, it took conversation from the community to get to this point. And I think I'm under the belief and understanding that the officer is taken off the street with an investigation. And because, when I talked to the chief about the first officer, it was a number of people in there that did things that were disturbing. And so, like, to see this stuff at the time that we're dealing with, the times that we're dealing with in the community, and for this stuff to be on video and it still take, the community outroar and the leaders to speak up for him to just be taken off the street. I think that one of the things that you see here is that it's a different type of justice for APD when it comes to minorities, and it's a different type of justice when it comes to APD for non-minorities. And this has been going on for a long time. And, how long do we have to wait, and how come we got to go through process to get things that if you or I acted like that in that manner towards the police, we would be arrested. So I just don't understand why the mayor or the police chief isn't doing the first thing, doing the right thing on first sight of this. You know, you got to remember this community still has a problem with the fact that Alizar got shot in the back running away from the cop, and that it was presented to the community in another manner. And we talk about community relations. This is not going to help people's confidence in APD when this type of stuff is going on in front of us, and you know, people are getting slapped on the hands. Thank you.
Gotcha. And one more thing, I don't know what is in our power as a legislative body and authority, but I really believe that these police misconduct cases such as this shouldn't be internally reviewed, and they should be automatically escalated to the highest authority outside of the police department. So I want to put that out there, and that's something that we do need to examine as a body. To see, you know, I mean, what are our best course of actions in the case of police misconduct?
I would say
that does bring in a discussion about a
CPRB.
longer-term view in terms of the Community Police Review Board and what we want to do there, which is not a simple conversation, but it's something we should talk about at some point.
Yeah, Kelly?
And go ahead, Joe.
I have a question, Joyce, Jamal. I see an awful lot of an uptick in shootings over in First, 2nd, Lexington Avenue. Is there outcry about that? Young kids shooting at each other again? A young boy being hit?
Joe, what does it have to do with Joe at hand? Regarding
I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm a little upset about every day seeing in the paper more shootings of young kids. Seems like they're shooting each other, teenagers or whatever, and it's focused on, it seems like First Street, 2nd Street, Quail, the same areas again. Do you see any more? I don't know. I mean,
okay, Joe, again, what does it have to do with the conversation at hand dealing with police misconduct?
no, I thought you were done with that. That's why I waited to ask.
Okay.
Continue, but you know.
And
Yeah,
Kelly,
we realize.
Kelly, what was you about to say? Can you?
No, but I didn't understand the context either. We were talking about something totally different, and that seemed kind of like offhand.
I apologize. I think we finished with that when Derek signed off. Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
Tom's got his hand up on this matter as well.
Kelly?
No. Just let me just say one more thing. And the thing is, and the problem is, and the issue that folks of color have is that when we have this very conversation that we're having right now, other folks say just what you said, Mr. Igo. They bring up, you know, black on black crime or, you know, that violence in the neighborhood. And it's all important. It's all, we care about all of it, but we're not talking about that now. We're talking about the police issue. So
I don't know if any of it was tied together or, you know.
No, none of it's tied together.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
Derek mentioned something about it last week and I just picked up.
Who?
Derek.
Eric?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, he did.
About what? What did I mention?
Well, they had an article about black on black crime shootings.
No, I put a meme up. That's not that was a conversation elsewhere, but you know, like I think that it's sometimes it could be borderline insensitive that every time we start trying to have this real conversation that needs to be held, you know, somewhere somebody interjects black on black crime, you know, or black people shooting black people. And a lot of that stuff has to do with the stuff that I try to talk about all the time, you know, our young members not being able to get entry-level positions in city jobs, you know, opportunity, you know, people being excluded from housing, and all of this stuff contributes to the stuff that we're dealing with. So, you know, you hear my frustration about knee-jerk resolutions. You know, the people are speaking. It's for a long time, leaders in Albany haven't heard from the people. Now we hearing from the people. What are we going to do about it?
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
And Joe, it ain't no Joe. That's not no personal attack at you, Joe. You know, you my guy.
No, I picked it up. I picked it up and I was trying to, I follow you. I enjoy following you. I enjoyed reading a lot of the people you put out there, Reverend Traham and et cetera. I think you've done a great job. I appreciate it.
So we still have
Mr.
on this topic. I know Mr. Hoey has things, and then there's a few more issues that I wanted to cover in this specific topic that we talked about. So go ahead.
Real fast, you know, the governor has been talking about this in his daily updates. We need to go to the Attorney General of the state to have the police investigated, because one of the problems the governor brings up is that the police work hand in hand with the district attorney, and how can you have a, fair, seeing what's going on? So maybe we need to reach out to the Attorney General, and I'm just throwing that out there.
There was a bill that's part of the police pack, and we might need to go further, absolutely, but as part of the package of bills, that was one of the pieces that was in there. I have not personally fully reviewed that, but you're absolutely right. That's one of the major issues that when you look at police reform, who is policing the police, and it just is. It's hard to police yourself. So another big piece that we talked about was I think we have all, I'm sure, heard about the issues of promotions and who has been promoted within the police department. So are people of color being promoted? And on a whole, they are not in the same way, or they're not. So it's, part of what they talked about was the process with that. But they said that the auditor is going to look at the data and really dig into it to see what data they're collecting and what they aren't, to be able to really start looking at demographics like that. But I would say that that's something that when we have that conversation that Joyce brought up, which I think is a great idea, I think that's one of the pieces that we need to talk about. Who is getting promoted? Why are people of color not getting promoted within the police department? And have that conversation to really start to look at things.
Right, and I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. On the police, and there's two parts to that. The part that can't be controlled and it's governed by civil service is rank. It's supervisors, and I think we have sergeants, lieutenants, and command. Well, but the commander is not a civil service rank, so there's really only the two, and officers. So, but most of the other, there's rank, but there are promotions to specialized units in the police department also that mattered, like that particular unit that the issue was with. I don't know if you all noticed one distinct thing about the group, but that's a part of the problem. We need more women, more folks of color in these different areas in the police department. I think it would make it a better department and do better by our folks, not just folks of color, but all folks, to have that diversity represented in the police department that we see out in the community. So I'll shut up with that.
Those are the major pieces that we talked about with that. Then with the budget, they are not sure if anything will happen with the federal budget before July 4th. They don't really have any indication one way or the other. They are doing everything they can to avoid layoffs and avoid what they have to do with layoffs. Right now they're in a hiring freeze, which means not hiring seasonal workers, which means no pool, no golf, they will be using CDBG funds to pay for rec programs. So I'm sure we asked about the summer youth employment program and the summer programs, but if you have not seen, rec has started putting different things out about how that looks like. I know that the school district will be doing working papers, so that's another piece of it. They will be using 3.5 million of debt reserve and tap into the fund balance. She said that they'll send an updated balance sheet. We have not gotten that yet. I'm gonna circle back on that because I'm very concerned about the budget. It's not something that we've been talking about because our focus has been elsewhere, but that has not changed the urgency with the budget. It's still a big deal. And there's still a lot of scary things that can happen with that. City Hall is opening. And as you could see, Danielle has already been looking at the potential if our open meetings law is not extended, that's in July, what it would look like for us to meet in the chamber. So they've been doing some redecorating to try to put some space around. So City Hall is opening right now in the transition. They prefer that people go in by appointment. Of course, she said if you go to City Hall, you can still get service, but they will be, it's kind of, they're trying to not have as many people in there at once. She said employees are going to be getting lanyards. I asked for council members to get lanyards as well, just so if you have a lanyard, you don't have to go through security. If you're like me and you forget your lunch and like have your lunch stuff in your bag, it can be a pain to go through security. So, Danielle.
Everyone, they rerouted it and they have like the ropes, the red velvet ropes. Everyone has to go through the metal detector now. No one has the option of circumventing. So may not
get your fork in your bag like me.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
We talked about they were waiting for the TANF money to find out exactly how many pieces were in like how many people they could serve in the summer youth employment program. It looked like there were some today that they came out with some specifics. So I'm going to look that up. And if they have specifics out there, I'll make sure to email it to everybody. I'm sure everybody's gotten a bunch of questions on that. But it would be great for people to be able to kind of get that word out.
Guys, I'm sorry, I missed it. Did we say that all of us have to go through the metal detectors now?
Danielle said yes, that everybody,
yes.
I've not been there, but that everybody has to go through metal detectors.
Right, and what I would add to that is, and the mayor mentioned it in our meeting, is that Joe is new. Remember, one of the security guys that works City Hall is different now, so he's not as familiar with folks. I think that was part of the issue too. At least that's what the mayor said, that Joe, the cop, is not. And besides, they should be checking everyone anyways. I mean, it's been a luxury to skip, and I know most of those guys, but I don't mind getting checked. I want everybody going in the building to get checked because you can't see crazy coming.
Yeah.
Metal detector's a little better at that. So.
They're not searching your belongings. You just have to walk through. Even if you beep, they won't do an extensive search. You don't have to run your bag through the x-ray, but you do have to go through the metal detector.
Gotcha. Okay.
DJ, you've got your virtual hand up.
So y'all just hit me with two things at once, right? But like, once again, here we go with doing stuff just to be doing it. Like, if we're gonna have people go through the metal detector and it goes off, what does that mean? They're not gonna do anything about it. It's a waste. We gotta stop doing stuff in the city that we just doing stuff for show to make it look like we're gonna do something about something. You know, once again, what is the purpose of making people go through that if the beepers, they're not gonna check bags, and if it goes off, you know, like, I don't understand why we doing that.
That's just for employees and people that should be in the building. If the general public goes off, I mean, they do a more in-depth search of the general public, but as a courtesy to us, they're not having us open our bags and display the contents.
I read that. I heard that wrong. Then I'm sorry. Yep. But
fair point, though.
And the other point that I wanted to make before that, when I put my hand up, we've moved on, and I forgot what I was gonna say. So I'm sorry.
Sorry, I missed it. If you remember wave or put your hand up again.
Thank you. Thank you.
So.
Joe has his
Joe-
hand up.
Joe-
I
Sorry.
just want to point out, we've never received any type of ID for city, to get in City Hall, or saying we're councilmen or anything like that. No.
That's why I asked for it.
Yeah.
They said, well, you know, the city employees will have their ID going through. I'm like, well, do we get that? Because we are.
Some of the cops don't know who we are.
So, you know.
Yeah,
So
we can bring that
they
up.
said that they could give that to us. So we'll see what happens with that.
Can I ask a quick question? Have you all had your photos taken as city employees? Because if you have had photos taken, it's not a heavy lift. I could ask Human Resources to print out the badges. But if you haven't had photos taken, that may require council members coming in, because on your badge, it typically has your photo.
So why can't you use what
Don't you have
we
pictures,
from
Danielle?
the, can't
From
you
the
use what
brochures?
our brochure? Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll send them the photos from the brochure to see what we can do. I'll work on that tomorrow with Human Resources.
Thank you.
Be good. Thanks.
Did somebody else have their hand up? Okay. We just touched base on the franchise agreement that they're doing an RFP for an outside person to run it. Owusu Alfredo and Richard are going to be involved with that. And they just asked to have, so if you guys could kind of be prepared to talk about what the council would like to see. So I would, if it's okay with you guys, and urge council members, talk to your constituents if there's specific things that that would impact your ward. If you could share that with Richard and Owusu and Alfredo, and I mean, you can include leadership as well, so we can kind of be making sure that we have like that information put together. Yes, Mike.
The franchise agreement, it's always, well, it's only with Spectrum, but it doesn't have to be. I don't remember that the franchise agreement does not have to be exclusive. So FiOS, I mean, I think competition would be good because Spectrum isn't cheap, but FiOS is right outside of Albany. And you know, it might be better for us to have two companies at the same time.
Yeah. I personally totally agree. I mean, I would love to see FiOS in here, and I think
And maybe there's a third company. I don't know.
Yeah, Mike. You know, the third company is the city of Albany. Just throw that out there.
This is the
Well,
cable franchise, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can make the third one work, true. Good.
I mean, right now with the issues we've been seeing with the school district, with the distance learning and it impacting a lot of kids because they don't have that Wi-Fi. I agree. I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, which is another really important but separate issue in terms of this specific franchise agreement conversation, I feel like the more we have going in, the better. So please look at your ward, think about what's needed. And maybe this is something that does lead into that bigger conversation of what broadband from the city of Albany looks like. You know, these are so great that, you know, but to make sure that those members that are participating have that full information, please talk to the people in your ward and see what you guys need and share that information. Mike?
I got one follow-up question with that. We have some unspent money for equipment, and it's only limited to equipment. And I believe that the Public Access Review Committee actually voted on a plan for rewiring the council chamber and the courtroom for when we have caucuses there. And they said, and the city said, oh, it had to go to the IT and the general services people. it got successfully voted out of the, the PEG Access Committee, right? I'm going to say February. It was definitely before COVID.
I think
So it
Danielle,
was probably in February,
I think
but
we
it hasn't gone, nothing.
talk
I
about.
can provide you an update. So today I was working with our law department, and we were revisiting the franchise agreement and identifying next steps, because that's a serious concern, because when we come back in the chambers and you limit the number of people in and out, you have to have better equipment so that you're able to live stream. So we looked at the franchise agreement, we looked at the items. I reached out to the Department of General Services to see if they had someone on staff, because that franchise agreement only covers the equipment, not the installation. So we have to have an electrician to do the wiring for the AV equipment. They don't currently have anyone on staff, but they did offer a very viable suggestion, which I in turn shared with a member of the Corporation Council, and they're taking that into consideration. And I believe she's working on the RFP, which will probably go out for the equipment, maybe the 12th, I think was the date that she had in mind. And in that RFP, we're going to reach out to vendors to see if they're willing, because you have the installation piece, but then you also have the training piece, because the council staff has to be trained on how to operate the equipment. So in that RFP, she's going to see if we can get free training, and whatever vendor provides the equipment is willing to commit to a certain number of hours of free training. But we are working on it, because that has been escalated given this pandemic and our requirement to be transparent, open to the public. We want to live stream, and the current equipment is spotty at best. So we are actively working on it and have been in conversations as today.
Okay.
Joe?
How many franchises are there? I know Verizon has been putting up those 5G things. So is there a franchise agreement with them? Is it they can do it because it's just their poles?
Wireless is a little different.
Wireless is different.
Okay.
iOS uses fiber optic cable, Joe. And what I've heard, I know people who work for Verizon, the reason that they're not here is that they want the cable to be able to provide cable TV over that fiber optic cable, besides internet and everything else. So this is a great opportunity for us, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay. I didn't want to get bypassed with that.
So those are all of the updates that that we have right now. I don't know if you have anything to add in there, Kelly.
Just that the mayor and the chief were supposed to start those individual meetings, Zoom meetings with folks to connect with the community about some issues. They had a few of those, and the mayor said, I spoke with her yesterday, she said those were going well. It's still early in the process, but it's a way for the community to communicate, concerns with the administration and the police. So it's still new and ongoing. Mr. Igo?
I think
you're muted. Are you just waving, saying bye?
I think it was just stretching, like.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that was.
And then hopefully that is something that we can do ourselves. I think that was a really good idea, Joyce. Because I think you're right. I think we need to do that. There's a lot of. We have to have a lot of conversations. So.
Ginny, I have a fast question for you. I was holding off. When you talked about the police academy coming up with 30 members, do we know what the diversity is for this incoming class?
I don't know that they have all the members of the incoming class yet.
Yeah.
But there's several more questions with that we do have. I know in the past that there has been a lot of, at least I've seen a big push to try to get people from the city of Albany, people of color, to join the police class. But I quite frankly, it seems like that should be part of the conversation that we have as well with the chief, because why would you might not want to do that. You might not be comfortable doing that. You can have somebody who's an incredible police officer, but you're not comfortable standing next to somebody that's going to be doing something that you feel uncomfortable with. And how do you figure that out? So to me, that's realistically an important part of the conversation that should be had. How do we actually get the people that we need in our police force? And I don't have those answers, but I feel like with some of our members that can help the conversation a lot.
Yeah, and I also want to know what is a part of the background checks for police officers. Does anybody know that offhand, or is that something we would have to ask the chief? Because I think one of the things that we need to also investigate is if their police officers have ties to certain white supremacist groups. That is a valid thing that we need to really begin to look at.
Yeah. And so just in general, it's, like a personality index they do, and they do like an individual psych and a group psych. I mean, so their process is in place, but obviously, and it's not just an issue that's unique to Albany, it's nationwide with police. There's some things you just can't see, some things you can't screen for, but I believe they're trying. If there's some new thing out there that we can utilize to work in the screening process, we should suggest it and ask our police to do it.
Or at least so we can know, so we know
Right.
what the limitations are, anything. I mean, it's a really good question.
Right, and I would also just say in terms of the affiliation with different groups or whatever, I don't know that once you're a police officer, if there's a periodic screening or background to check, updating that, your affiliations or what have you. I don't think there is at this point, but maybe that might not be a bad idea either, to have that done, every 5 years or something like that, just as an idea to throw out there.
So if there's nothing else, we'll see some people tomorrow for the Human Resources, Human Rights Committee meeting, and definitely everyone on Monday. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Everyone be safe.
Thank you.
Meeting
Motion
adjourned.
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. All in favor. All in favor.
All right.
Aye. Aye. Everybody be safe.
Take care.